Well, hello friends and welcome to Ask Zach. Today we're going to talk about the Don Kelley Band. And the reason we're doing this is because on August 5th, which was just, on Monday of I guess probably last week now when you're watching this, I saw one of the greatest shows I've ever seen in my life. One of the greatest musical events that could have gone horribly wrong with all of the guitar players playing, but it was a reunion of the majority of the guitarists that played in the Don Kelley Band starting in the early 80s all the way up until today, and it was amazing. So I'm going to talk about the concert, and I'm going to talk about just the impact, the legacy of Don Kelley and the guitar players in his band. And yeah, I'm really excited to do this because, of course, I've been a huge fan of Don Kelley and his guitar players. And, of course, I've interviewed Don. And if you want to take a deep dive, I'll put some links in the description, to the interviews I've done with Don and then with the some of the other guitar players in Don's band, like Red Volkart and Brent Mason and others. But, yeah, I'm a huge fan. And these guys are really important. Don is really important, and all the guys in his band are really important guitar players for Nashville and impacting the use of the Telecaster and such, especially kind of in the last 40 years. So, yeah. All right, first I need to thank my Patreon members. That is, if you want to support the channel, which I appreciate if you do, the best way is through Patreon. And, of course, you can find out all about that also in the description. There's a link. Also, just so you know, I do a fair amount of posting on Instagram and such, and also I do some on TikTok and Facebook. So if you want to really keep up to date with me, I'd suggest you follow me on one of those, especially Instagram. That's when I probably do the most posting. All right, let's dive in. So let's see, a couple months ago, Simo, who's of course a good friend of mine, he contacted me and he said, it's finally going to happen. He said, we're going to have a reunion show. It's going to be for the anniversary of Robert's Western World, which is of course where Don has played for many years. And they're going to block off, part of Broadway, downtown Nashville. And they're going to set up a big stage and they're going to have music all day long, and then the headliner is going to be Don Kelley with all his guitar players that have played with him through the years. And so I was just blown away. I couldn't believe it because, this is something we kind of had all been kind of hoping for. And even with some of the interviews and such, like, my interview with Don, there was part of me that had hoped that we could, get a bunch of the, guitar players to come to the filming of that and have them, kind of interview them some too about Don, but it ended up not working out. So to me, this was just an amazing event. And of course I had to be there. So finally the date came, and I'll do a quick aside, and that's 2 nights before, I went and saw Vince Gill at the Ryman. And Vince hasn't played one of his own shows in quite a while because he's been busy with the Eagles. And so I went and saw Vince on Friday night. So of course I saw Don and the guys on Monday. But I saw Vince, and he had an amazing band. He had Tom Bukovac and Jed Hughes playing guitar with him, playing mostly rhythm and of course, playing some fills and a solo every once in a while. But it was an amazing 4-hour show. Yes, they did take like a 30-minute break, but still, it was at least 2 90-minute sets, if not longer. And, Vince is in his late 60s, and I kind of expected some of the songs to be in lower keys or, I don't know, but he more than lived up to, he lived way beyond my expectations. All the songs were in the same keys. I think he even told me that one of the songs he put in a higher key just because he liked it for the guitar better. And it was just an amazing show. So if you have a chance to see Vince Gill, go see him. he's still playing and singing like ever before, and he always has an amazing band. All right, back to Don Kelley. So Monday night, they have, the concerts kind of going on all day long. And, there's like the French Family Band with Stewie French and Sonny French playing. And, Rhonda Vincent was playing when JD and I arrived. I decided to hitch a ride with JD because I just didn't want to go by myself to downtown Nashville with a lot of people and dealing with parking. So we decided to we met up and took an Uber, which ended up being the best thing to do. We took an Uber to, which they were able to drop us off right near the stage. And of course we had, I was helping JD out with I carried his guitar in a gig bag, and he had his Headstrong Lil King amp. And we got there, and Rhonda Vincent was playing, bluegrass, and it was amazing. And all of a sudden, the other guitar players started showing up, and there's Red Volkart and Brent Mason and all, Daniel Donato and Luke McQuarrie, and everyone's kind of showing up and hanging out. There's not really a backstage area because it's a street concert, so it's a stage setup in the middle of the street. So we're just kind of hanging out, and people are saying hi, and people are, taking photos and stuff like that, and saying, hey, hey, Red, let me take a photo with you and stuff like that. And it was just a really cool vibe. Everyone was just really happy to be there, and Don Kelley showed up, and you could tell he was in high spirits because this was a tribute to him, and this is celebrating Don. So he was very grateful and in high spirits. And Joe Fick, his bass player, and Bill Van Vliet, the drummer, they were all there. And I was really wondering how the concert was going to go. And so I asked JD, and he said, well, I had made some suggestions, but it's Don's show, and so he's going to do whatever he wants. I said, great. So all of a sudden, Rhonda Vincent's done. They've cleared the stage. They've set up, all the guitar players, and, you've got all these, Fender amps set up, and the Headstrong that JD brought. And Don says, okay, we're going to start off with the main, the last incarnation of the band, which of course is Joe Fick on bass, Bill Van Vliet on drums, and Luke McQuarrie on guitar, along with Don. And then we're going to have Brent Mason and Red Volkart come out. And so, wow. I mean, this was just amazing. And so you had Red Volkart and Brent Mason. Of course, Brent was the original guitar player in the band. He was actually in the band before Don, but Don kind of took it over. And it was just ridiculous. Hearing Luke, who's of course the youngest, he's the kid, he more than held his own with the other guys. And Red, with his just such an individualistic, kind of way of playing, and his kind of quirkiness that's beautiful. And Brent, who is just, still at the top of his game, after 30 or 40 years as a session guitar player. It was an amazing display. And these guys, there was mutual respect. When one of them was soloing, they would kind of see if one of the other guitar players was kind of playing rhythm, and the other one would kind of really hold back, and they would really watch and pay attention and listen. And of course they were paying attention to Don, because Don's, calling the shots and pointing at them and telling them, when it's their turn to solo. And so they went, round and round, Brent, Red, and Luke, playing solos. And it was really a musical conversation. It wasn't just like, here I am and I'm going to play my hot solo. They would listen to what the person had done before them, and at times they would kind of respond to that, and they would play something in a similar vein. And other times, kind of that paragraph they would put a period at the end of it, and someone would start something new, and then again it would happen. And it was a really, really beautiful, artistic, because you think it's just going to be a bunch of guitar players playing a bunch of notes, but those guys really, really cared and they really wanted to be there. Without giving up too much, Brent Mason was not feeling well that night, and he showed up anyway and just played amazing. And of course, Red had flown in. He doesn't live in Nashville. He lives in Virginia now, and so he had flown or drove in, just for this. So it was really, really special. So after, and of course, Brent was playing, he had a road-worn Telly with a bender on it that's kind of like, it's been kind of a backup guitar for him for years. And he had a twin and a pedal board. And Red Volkart, he had, it looked like a real Blackguard that he had, along with a Grammatico amp with JBL speakers, like a Tweed twin type thing, 100-watt job. And even with that, and Luke was playing through a backline deluxe reverb, and all of them, kind of held their volume well. Luke had that kind of signature model. Well, it's not really a signature model yet, but it's, a guitar that the custom shop made for him. That's a thin line with a mini humbucker in the neck and a regular Telly bridge pickup. So minimal, pedals. Yeah, they just played beautifully together, and it was just a beautiful moment. And so those guys, meaning Brent and Red, they came off the stage, and then Johnny Highland and JD Simo came up, and that was fantastic too, just in its own way. And JD, knowing that there was going to be a lot of kind of standard guitar playing, JD purposefully played a lot of slide just to do something different, because he knew what Johnny Highland was kind of gonna do. And and Johnny does it so well, plays so fast and so cleanly, that he did more slide. And of course, Johnny did some slide playing too, which was fun, and that was a really special moment. And then the last kind of lineup was Daniel Donato along with David Graham got up, and they did their thing. And I really, I didn't know David very well, but he certainly played great. Daniel Donato, I've really enjoyed his playing, and I've gotten to see him, grow up through the years. I remember him coming to the True Tone offices when he was like 13 or 14 years old, and he was an amazing guitar player. And I remember going and seeing Daniel play with Don Kelley, and in the beginning he was good when he first started the gig, but then after you do that gig for a while, and again, you're playing 4 or 5 nights a week, 4 hours a night, and you're the only soloist in the band. Well, 6 months later, when I went again, and I think I took, my niece was in town, and so I took her with us, and we went and saw Daniel with the Don Kelley band, and Daniel was jaw-dropping good, and he had improved so much. Just his musicality, the flow of his playing, muscle memory, all those things had really come together. His chops were just at an amazing level. And that's what happens with every guitar player that plays in that band, is they get amazingly better. And that's part of the Don Kelley thing, was he would take these guitar players that were really, really good, and then he would make them great by putting them through the paces. And he would tell them, what he wanted them to sound like. And I think, that's part of his legacy, is, pushing the, people think of Nashville as a Telecaster and a deluxe reverb, kind of town. But I mean, part of it is Don Kelley kind of pushed that, especially kind of the whole gunslinger Telecaster guy. Don Kelley is a big part of that, because he's done that for 40 years. He's had those gunslingers in his band, and forever, before I moved here in the early 90s, it's always been who's in Don Kelley's band now, who's the hot new guitar player. And they always played a Telecaster, and they played a Telecaster because of Don, and even the reason Brent Mason has to be one of the most important guitar players and session guitar players, of the last, 40 years, and such a huge influence on the Nashville sound and the way the Telecaster is used in country music. And the reason he plays a Telecaster is because of Don Kelley. you know, Brent was playing a Hagstrom Swede, which if you're not familiar with it, it's this, you know, kind of Les Paul custom looking kind of thing. And Don was the one that convinced him. It's like, hey, you know, you've got to get a Tele. And so they went, both of them got a Telecaster. You know, Brent got a blonde one and Don got the gray one. And, you know, Brent ended up liking the gray one better. And so they swapped out, and that's the way it's been ever since. You know, Brent Mason has been playing that gray primer 67 Tele, you know, that of course he added a bender and multiple pickups and stuff like that too. But yeah, and so I think, you know, Don deserves, you know, some credit there too, and helping in making the Telecaster really synonymous with Nashville, and really making that a big part of the sound, you know, because he put that in Brent's hand. And then in the 90s, Brent made the Telecaster sound just a big part of 90s country, which was really the zenith of the popularity of country music. And, you know, think about all the Alan Jackson and, you know, Brooks and Dunn and George Strait and on and on and on things that Brent did. But yeah, so it was a killer show, and they ended it with playing Ghost Riders in the Sky. And, you know, really that song kind of got its legs when J.D. Simo was in the Don Kelley band. He's the one that really turned it into the big showcase. And, you know, of course, J.D. would go off into psychedelic land, and he'd, you know, sometimes bring like a fuzz pedal or do something crazy. And, you know, so they ended the night with that song, and everyone, of course, took a great solo on that. And there's, I think Premier Guitar has some video of them doing Ghost Riders in the Sky. And it was just a really cool ending, and a really great tribute to Don, and of course all the guitar players that have been in the band. There was, we were missing, you know, Guthrie Trapp. He had a scheduling conflict, and so he wasn't able to be there. And you know, he's another important chapter in the Don Kelley band. But the rest of the guys were able to be there, and it was a really great celebration. And I was just elated to be there. And I was you know, kind of side stage with Joe Glazer and some other guys, and you know, we just marveled as we you know, watched these masters all get up there with the great coach Don Kelley. You know, it's kind of like all these quarterbacks, you know, that are all stars, and they are all, you know, getting up there with their coach one more time and playing a game, and you get to watch it, and it was amazing. So yeah, all right, well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Just wanted to give Don Kelley and his band guys some love. Special love to J.D. Simo, my buddy, that I'm especially proud of his accomplishments with Don Kelley and afterwards, and of course his friendship. And I hope you guys are all well, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.